Hello again, everyone. This is Ross Carpri with Keller Williams Metro South, and coming back to you to do some further discussions in the real estate industry and business. And I'm here along with Andy Gagliano with Gagliano Mortgage, and we're going to talk to you about a couple of things that are very important to buyers and sellers and just about everybody in the business. The thing I'm going to cover today is inspections. I know we typically kind of go hand in hand with that. You buy a house, you have it inspected. If everything goes well in the inspection, then you proceed with the uh, completion of the sale. In the past, though, when the market got real tight and was real hot, and everybody was trying to buy the same house, a lot of buyers were looking for ways to get the upper hand, and some of those ways ended up being not to have an inspection and not to ask for any repairs. And I would advise no one to do that. Unless in fact you know behind the scenes what a particular property is like, and maybe it's a friend of yours that you know that does all the repairs that whenever they break. That's very rare. So I would never advise a client to not get an inspection on a house. I mean, even if you spend $400, $500, $600, whatever it is, and they tell you the house is in great shape, for one, that's rare, and for two, that still is $400 or $500 or $600 well spent, because any major repair in a home that goes undetected can cost you 3 times as much. So it's never advised by a realtor that purchase a home and do not have an inspection. Now, the thing about inspections that people need to know is you're paying an inspector to go out to a property and find everything he can find wrong with it. I mean, that's his job. He's got to be your eyes and ears and all that, and tell you exactly what he sees. Now it's up to you as a buyer to determine, hey, this is not no big deal, or my husband can fix that, or I know some people in the business that can do this for cheaper and that kind of thing. But it's their job to find everything wrong with the house. And when you get your inspection report back, it's your duty and your realtor's duty to sit down and discuss, okay, what do you feel is important? What do you feel is a health hazard? What do you feel is something that you can't live with? What do you feel is something that you cannot overlook? And those are the things that you determine in your repair report, repair addendum. These are things I want addressed. And that's the way it's supposed to go. But like I say, with the market was as hot as it was, people were trying to figure out, well, how can I buy that house from the other 9 or 10 people that want the home? How can I be different? And a lot of people, in addition to paying way above list price for the house, they were doing it without an inspection. I would never, ever, ever advise that. It's a gamble that most of the time you're not going to win. So, um, having said that, once you get past the inspection and everything is to your liking, everything's to the seller's liking, then you move on, and the next thing would probably be to have the property appraised, because that is one of the deciding factors as well when you're financing a home. Now, Andy's going to talk to you guys about that in just a few minutes on FHA appraisals. There are different kinds of appraisals, and I'll let him get into the meat of that. But a lot of different appraisers have different requirements. FHA and VA might be a little stricter. There's things that they want you to do to your home before it appraises for whatever the contract price is. Conventional appraisers are a little bit, I wouldn't say more lenient, but they're not as strict as governmental appraisers. I'll let him get into that in just a second. But let me just please reiterate, do not purchase a home without having it inspected. You've got to let somebody look at it that's going to take the time. Most inspections will take 3 to 4 hours, depending on the size of the house. And that is a lot of time for him to find a lot of things that might affect the sale. So keep that in mind. Always, always, always have it inspected. So I'm going to get off of that bandwagon for now. I'm going to turn it over to Andy, who's going to talk to you about the different kinds of appraisals you can get and FHA appraisals and how they differ from all the others.
Yeah. Thank you, Ross. I appreciate you having me on again today. And, you brought up a great point a few minutes ago. You said something along the lines of, even if there's nothing that you can see that's majorly wrong with the house, it's still a good idea to get an inspection. And part of the reason for that is, there's a term called deferred maintenance. And that is things like, I'll use this as an example, cleaning out gutters. A lot of owners will put off cleaning out gutters because they don't want to get out there and do it themselves. Look, I hate being up on a ladder. I totally get it. We could pay somebody to do that, but that costs money. So what are we going to do? We're going to put it off. Well, when those gutters stay full, the water comes over the edge of the gutter and runs along the fascia board and runs down into the soffit on the home. And eventually that causes rot. So something as easy as spending, $125, $150 a year to have your gutters cleaned can end up costing you several $1,000s in repairs down the line. And those are the kind of things that a home inspector can look at and say, hey, today this is not an issue. But if it's not fixed, in a few years, it could be an issue for you. So that's one of the great things about home inspections. And, we get this a lot from our buyers, the question of, well, Andy, since I'm getting an appraisal on the house, I don't necessarily need to spend this money for a home inspection, do I? And at that point in time, we've got to talk about the differences between an appraisal and a home inspection. And what Ross said just a minute ago is 100% accurate. And that is, there's different types of appraisals. And so for different types of loans. So a conventional appraisal for a conventional loan is going to be more lenient, more liberal on the condition of a house than an FHA or a VA or a USDA appraisal would be. And there's a reason behind that. And the reason is typically your buyers who are getting conventional loans have a little bit more money for down payment. They can afford to take on a house that might need a little bit of work to it compared to a buyer that's getting an FHA, a VA, or a USDA property. Now, that's not a blanket statement whatsoever. That's not saying that your FHA, USDA, and VA buyers don't have money to spend for home repairs, because many of them do. But many of them are also first-time home buyers, and they're utilizing these low down payment programs because they don't have a lot of money saved. Coming up with down payment and closing cost is still, after all of my years of being in this business, it is still the number one issue that prevents people from being able to buy a home. And so once they do come up with the money for down payment and closing cost, they spend all that money on purchasing the home, and they don't have a lot of money to go in and do renovations or do repairs to a property. So because most of the buyers that are getting these government loans, the USDA, the VA, and the FHA loans, are putting down less money for a down payment, and they have less money available after the closing, those three types of loans are going to be more strict on appraisal as far as the condition of the property. And they're really looking for any kind of safety issues with the home. I'll talk about that in just a second. Structural issues with the home. So they want to know that the property is sound. They want to know that it's safe and that it's secure. So in talking about safety, think about a property that has, even if it's 3 or 4 steps leading up to the front door of the house, if there's no handrail on those stairs, that could be a safety hazard, not just for kids, but for elderly people. And now, look, my kid's going to say I'm elderly. my nieces and nephews are going to say I'm elderly. I'm not quite elderly yet, but I think about the number of times all of us have fallen up the stairs because we're trying to get up too quickly. Having that handrail there is a great safety measure, not just for the people who need it on a daily basis, but for those who at times, those of us who at times get a little clumsy going up or down stairs. So things like that, not having a handrail is going to be something that's flagged on a government appraisal for a VA, USDA, or FHA loan, whereas on a conventional loan, probably is not going to be flagged by that appraiser. So, and that's something that a home inspector is going to point out. Now, is a home inspector going to require you to have a handrail? Well, if if that set of stairs that doesn't have a handrail is not up to code, your local building code, then yeah, that home inspector should flag that and say, hey, this needs to be repaired. But if it's not, if it's just one step or two steps, then, you know, maybe your local building codes say that's okay to not have a handrail, but your government appraiser is going to say, yes, it needs a handrail. So there's a big difference there between an appraisal and an inspection. The primary purpose of an appraisal, the primary purpose of an appraisal, whether it's a conventional appraisal, an FHA, a USDA, a VA appraisal, no matter what kind of appraisal it is, the primary purpose of an appraisal is to come up with a value, an independent third party or third person's opinion of value for that appraisal. Now, just because there are those safety and soundness and security issues that a government appraiser is going to look for with those properties that are for those buyers that are getting those VA, USDA, and FHA loans, just because that's there doesn't mean that those appraisals that are looking for those safety, security, and soundness issues with the property, it's not going to be as thorough of an inspection as a home inspection would be. And so just, you know, I think a good way to sum it all up and kind of wrap it all up, Ross, is to say this. FHA, which is a loan program that's administered by the Department of Housing Urban Development. FHA has a form that is a required document to be given to every buyer. So we in the mortgage industry are required to give this document to every single buyer, and they're required to acknowledge receipt of that document. And the document says this. The title of it is, "For Your Protection, Get a Home Inspection." That is how important home inspections are in the home buying process, to where the Department of Housing Urban Development says, hey, buyer, you need to get a home inspection. It's not the same as an appraisal. And so because the government's recommending that buyers get inspections, they want to know that form is being signed to prove that the mortgage originator, gave that form and disclosed that information to a buyer. They want to be sure that buyer knows that they need to get an inspection for their own good, for their own future benefit and knowledge. So it's an important distinction. And I think a lot of times, you know, that what happens in those two processes, the inspection process and the appraisal process, the lines get a little blurred, the water gets a little muddy, but they're very different, very distinct processes and services. And we recommend that a buyer gets both. And so, yeah, this is something very important. And I'm glad that you and I are having this discussion today, Ross, because it's something that a lot of buyers need to know.
Well, and I agree, Andy. And the thing about it is, people, when you're buying a house, don't think you can do it on your own. My friend down the street bought a house. He didn't have an agent. He had no one. Don't do that. I mean, we're here. I mean, obviously for a living like everybody else, but we're here to try to advise and protect our clients that are not as familiar with purchasing a home as we are. Now, there's so many people look up on the internet, uh, how do I buy a house? You can't do that. You got to have people that you can talk to that will advise you. If it were me, I would do this, or maybe look at doing this, or you may not want to do this. Try to help you to make the process easy. So many people are fixed on, gosh, if I get a realtor, I've got to pay him. If you get a home inspection, you got to pay for it. If you get an appraisal, you have to pay for it. These are just things that are part of the home buying process. So you'll be a lot better off if you use the professionals that know what they're doing to get you through the sale, as opposed to trying to save a buck or two here and there and end up having a major snag down the road, because there's a lot of things that are involved in buying a home. And now that although the industry has changed over the last couple of 3 days, that there's going to be some new changes coming going forward that we're all going to have to learn at the same time. So
Yeah.
if you want to purchase a home or even sell your home, get an agent involved that that you trust, that will advise you based on the circumstances and not on the fact that they just want to make a dollar, because that is not what a lot of us are all about.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody's that way. I would hope they would be, but people are different. But you got to get with somebody that's been doing it for a while and knows the things to avoid, things to possibly do, workarounds, things to make it easy. The goal for a realtor is to make the transaction as easy as possible. So that's my advice.
Yeah. Ross, there's a difference between being cheap and being frugal.
Sure.
And, what I would say is, if there's a buyer out there who is saying, hey, I can't afford to get a home inspection. I want to buy this house, but I can't afford a home inspection. Well, then, my recommendation might be, why don't you wait another month or wait another 2 months? Save up some more money for your down payment and your closing costs, because a home inspection is that important,
Sure.
to where it's not something that you want to be cheap and just skip. It's not something that you want to say, well, my brother-in-law does HVAC repairs, so he's going to go check out the HVAC system for me. It's not going to cost me anything, and I'll just won't get the home inspection. That's not the time to be cheap.
Uh,
Now, you can be frugal and shop around for home inspectors to find one who's going to give you great service and a great price. That's a big difference between cheap and frugal. So
sure.
let's be frugal and smart. Let's not be cheap and foolish. And I am always of the opinion that today is the best day to buy a house, but that is for a buyer who is financially and mentally ready to buy. And if you don't have the money as a buyer for your home inspection, then I would say you're not financially ready, and mentally you are, but it would make you mentally more prepared and mentally a better buyer if you waited another month or 2 months and
Sure.
saved some extra money.
1,000%. I agree with that. So,
So, but
deal.
this has been good, Ross. I've enjoyed this, and I think there's a lot of great information for buyers out there. And
Sure.
if someone wants to get in touch with you if they are mentally and financially ready to buy, how would they go about getting in touch with you to have a consultation and get you to start looking for some homes for
Absolutely. I mean, I have my cell phone glued to my hip
them?
until I go to bed at night. So I'm at 205-601-0123. And if for some reason I can't answer the phone, I'll let you know that. please leave a message and I'll be sure to call you back just as soon as I'm finished with whatever task I'm handling at the time. And you can also text me if you need to, if you don't have time to talk. If you want me to just give you a call when I'm available, just say text me or text me and call me and say call me at such and such a number. And I'll be more than happy to get in touch with you and try to take you through the process. I want people that I work with to know what they're doing. I'm not just there to sell a house. Anybody can do that. I want to be there to tell you and help you so that you know what you're doing. And when it's over, then I want you to come to me and say, wow, that was easy. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not
Yeah.
supposed to be. So
Yeah.
just give me a call and I'll help you out. And Andy will tell you how to get in touch with him.
Yeah. So you guys can reach me in my office. The number's 205-979-4412. I'm at extension 1. And so you can give me a call. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you. It doesn't cost a dime to have a talk with me, and we can do a free pre-qualification as well, which will give you just a general overview using all my years of experience and me being able to tell you, hey, based on the guidelines, I think that you can afford to spend X number of dollars on a mortgage payment, which means you'd be able to borrow Y number of dollars on a mortgage to purchase a home, add your down payment to that, and there's the sales price that you need to give to Ross to get him out there and let him start pulling up some houses for you to go look at. So give me a call. I'll be glad to help out in any way that I can. It doesn't cost a penny to call and have a conversation. And yeah, I think that with Ross and with me, you guys watching can see we're both very low pressure. If it makes sense for you and you want to do it, let's do it. You're not going to get a sales pitch from either one of us. We want you to go at your own pace where you're comfortable, and we want this to be a fun and easy process for you. And that's what we're here to do, is help guide you through that. So
Absolutely. Very
give us a
well
call.
said. Good deal. All right, Andy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ross. I appreciate it. It's good seeing you again.
You too, and we'll get together again soon and come up with some good ideas.
Sounds great. Have a great
Thank you.
week.
All right, you too.
All right. Goodbye.